hero of mine, and I'm talking about Frederick V, Elector Palatine, Prince of Heidelberg, King of Bohemia, who was not content to sit back and let things happen, but was willing to launch a grand alchemical dream of a reformation of human society.
Restored to their original scientific and spiritual dignities, we will never get anywhere with them. Every mistake, every sorrow, every problem that we have has within it the seed of its own solution. And also it is contributing to the ultimate perfection of ourselves, our world, and our universe. To find these things, we have to begin to search for the keys to regeneration, the keys to restoration. Now it so happens that these keys have not been entrusted to the sky or the earth. They've been entrusted to man himself. Because of those creatures existing on earth today, the human being is the most evolved, having the greatest potentials, having the greatest equipment with which to accomplish major good in this world. The human being has the facilities, the mental abilities, the rational faculties by which he can take the seed of eternity within himself and release it as described in the structure of Kabbalistic philosophy. So we have here today a world of people, nearly 5 billion, perhaps a little more, each one of which, whether it knows it or not, is immortal. Each one of these creatures has been endowed with a potential. In each human being, the seed of eternity has been sown in the fields of time. The human being could not breathe, could not walk, could not think, could not exist if eternity was not within him. The eternal life, the life of all things, is that which gives man life. Each kingdom of nature unfolds this life according to its own rules and laws. Each kingdom of nature tries to expand its potentials. We see the gradual development of the plant kingdom, in which a small lichen somewhere gradually develops into a magnificent tree. We see all the flowers of the field. We also see all the beautiful crystals in the rocks. Everywhere something of a divine nature is being revealed through kingdoms of nature. In the animal kingdom, other values are revealed. We discover perceptions and reflective powers that we do not even take for existing, let alone take for granted. Then we finally come to the individual, the human being, who is the sum of all this evolutionary process. Here we have a being of which, for instance, we can mention such beings as Leonardo da Vinci. We can think in terms of Michelangelo. We can think in terms of Stradivarius or any of the great leaders of human arts, crafts, and revelations. We can think of the saints and the sages, all of the different degrees of development and unfoldment that already are obvious in the human being. They are obvious because he is endowed with them. They are obvious because they are manifestations of the thing that makes him exist, and that is the divine seed of life within himself. That which is within himself is his own immortality. It is also in that part of him which functions in his daily life. It is that power within him which digests his food, keeps his heart beating, controls and regulates digestion and elimination. It is this same power that gives him the right to write a book, to make a great contribution in art or music or science or philosophy. All the different departments of life arise from one tiny seed, the divine seed in man. It is this one divinity which is the unit. This is the monad of existence. This is the one from which all things come, and yet all things in their infinite divisions are still one. From one source all knowledge arises. For one purpose all knowledge exists, and that is the perfection and growth of living things. In our course of life, politically and socially, we have forgotten almost entirely the part of ourselves which alone can be solutional. We cannot solve with the mind unless the mind is inspired. We cannot create with the hand unless the hand is regulated and guided. We cannot create with the body unless the body itself responds to a divine eternity within itself. So here we are, human beings, each with a different kind of destiny, each dedicated to some purpose, each one hoping, fearing, believing, each one living and dying within a peculiar situation in which the real reason for the whole thing remains unknown. We do not today believe or realize the power of this seed germ within ourselves, which seed germ is eternity, hidden within the poles and regions of time. This inside thing is that which has to be released, and the release of this is the great secret of transmutations and transformations. Everything depends for its survival upon this submerged, hidden source of life within ourselves. It is the spark of eternity in us upon which we depend for everything. And when that leaves the body at death, it takes with it every activity, every process, except disintegration. This is one of the reasons why it seems as though in this world there's been a great overlooking of something. We have been trusting each other on a level which is not trustworthy. We have tried to work out our problems without bringing into focus the one solution that is possible, and that is the release of the eternal plan through ourselves. It is the same with nations. From the beginning, nations have been compound individuals. They have existed with temperaments and dispositions. They each have their own peculiar specializations in life. They have their languages, their customs, their arts, and many times their religions and their languages. All these are parts of a unit, and the unit of a nation is a kind of collective atom. For each atom is a personification of a racial, a cultural, or a social problem or pressure. So in the atom problem, we have the atom who is Greek, the atom who is Chinese. But we also recognize that each of these compounds is ensouled. Each one of them exists as itself rather than falling into chaos, because the entire structure is embodying a principle. The development of humanity, the tree of races, means that a life principle is flowing through all races. And these races become branches upon a great tree. And this tree is the tree of life itself. But every nation is part of that plan. Every individual within a nation is a leaf or a twig or a bud upon a tree. A living thing depending upon one life. Now this means that whether we realize it or not, there is only one life. And this is the thing which is difficult for us to understand. In our way of competition, in our way of self-centeredness, each individual competes with another and tries to outdo others. In strangeness it may seem, there is no one to compete with, because actually there is only one life. And all competition is a mistaken belief that this life can be controlled in one direction or another, when in the truth of the matter, the creatures must be controlled by that life principle. The principle is not divided. There is no such a thing in the principles of things as the various structures we set up and defend so stoutly. We defend our politics, without realizing that all government rises from a tree, and that the root of this tree is in eternity. We believe all arts and sciences have their sources in the various geniuses which created them and which we regard as their patrons. Actually, our painting, music, literature, architecture, all these are trees growing from one root. Life in all of its manifestations is one life, diversified through expression and through creation, but never actually divided. If one of these arts should actually die, all would die with it, because it is part of one life. Now these various plants and things becoming like individuals, nations, develop characteristics. They develop likes and dislikes. They are influenced by longitude and latitude. And today they are influenced largely by lassitude. They are influenced by fable, by myth, by tradition, by heredity. All these things seem to divide these nations from each other. But as we find so clearly pointed out in the Shakespearean plays, some of them, especially The Merchant of Venice, every one of these various factors depends upon a common feeling, a common reality. If a child dies, does not its parent weep, regardless of race? If someone is killed in an accident, is there not a tragedy, whether we know that person or not? If a nation destroys itself, or tries to, is this not a catastrophe, regardless of what nation it is? Is it more beneficial to life for a small country to die than for a great one? All are one. There is only one nation, and that is the humanity itself. There is only one art, the art of living. There is only one science, the science of salvation. There is only one religion, eternal hope of good. So if we can begin to get this oneness out of to where we can see it, it can do a great deal with it. And yet to the average person, this oneness is more or less obviously necessary, but no one pays much attention to it. We think of each person coming into the world as an individual, free to do what they want to do, and that the life within them is bestowed in order that they may be able to do what they please. So the divine within us is used to advance the human and material ambitions that we develop. Each person seems to feel that he can build a different structure upon the one life which made him alive. He seems to believe or think that he can create a destiny for himself, using this one divine power as eternal life, but that divinity is merely a fuel which permits him to do as he pleases. Then in spite of everything to the contrary, the individual is not responsible to anything for the use he makes of everything. This is a factor which we have never been able to completely overcome. But we're getting more and more into the situation where if we can't understand it, we're going to be in a very bad way. We are still hoping that some way, in some manner of our own conjecturing, that we're going to be able to arbitrate these differences, that each individual will be able to continue to do as he pleases, but in some way the power to please in a destructive manner will be reduced. I think the answer to this is something for science to give a lot of thought to, because the first thing we need to know now is the thing that science can't tell us, and that is, what is life?